Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac with today's Daily Comedy News. What's going on with Kevin Hart? Bloomberg reports that days after Thanksgiving, Kevin Hart's production company laid off about 20 people. That's about 1/4 of its workforce, so 80 people working for Kevin Hart's production company. Not too shabby, but not too long after, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, and the chief content officer of Heartbeat all departed. The departures are called amicable, but followed a disagreement about the direction of the company. Hey, Kevin, when your top 3 folks are like, there's something going wrong here, I think. Bloomberg writes, Kevin had ambitions of building something more than a production company. He wasn't content to be a famous multimillionaire. He wanted to be a billionaire. He formed a separate company, Laugh Out Loud, to create comedy videos for the internet. He built an advertising business with clients like Lyft and Procter & Gamble. He produced YouTube videos and podcasts for Sirius, and he was a media entrepreneur before many of his premieres. He formed Heartbeat in 2022, merging all his businesses under one roof. Pretty interesting if he's laying off that many people and the top 3 folks departed. That does not sound good. NewYorkTheater.com reviewed Gary Gulman's new show, Grandiloquent. They give it 4 stars out of 5 rating. Comedian Gary Gulman delivers an uproarious description of his troubled childhood in this one-man show. It's titled Grandiloquent, the definition of which the comedian hopefully provides in the course of the evening. Gary says the word means the use of extravagant or flowery language, especially when intended to impress. Sporting a prominent goatee that makes him look like a hip university professor, his delivery of perfectly crafted one-liners is frequently accompanied by sly smiles acknowledging the resulting laughs. He knows how good he is, but he's not crass enough to laugh at his own jokes. JTA.org caught up with Gary and said, tell us about the show. What can we expect? Gary said, oh man, I've been told people have laughed and cried, so they can expect an emotional, I wouldn't call it a roller coaster, but an emotional flume ride, maybe. I can't call it tragicomic nor comic-tragic, but there are some sad, sad moments in it, but it's mostly hilarious. That's what I would say. A stand-up act is just how many funny things can I say in an hour and a half, and then you write a one-person show, and there's a lot of expressing, well, what does this show want to be? This show, I wanted it to end with the beginning. I open up talking about the first book I ever read, and then I close by talking about that same book. I like that, when movies or books or plays end where they began. And so that was important to my director and me. And so it ended up with a punchline that wasn't all that funny, but hopefully will resonate. Not being funny is very challenging for a stand-up comedian, especially one as obsessed and passionate about finding the funniest things I can say to the point of it being unhealthy sometimes. So the challenge, ironically, is not to be funny, when usually the challenge is to make this as funny as possible. Gary talked about his first open mic experience, October 11th, 1993, so 31 years ago this past October, and it went well enough that I was hooked for life. It's like, imagine what it would be like to have a really good drug for the first time, and you're like, well, I guess I'm on this drug. That's how I felt. I was hooked. I got an applause break over an impression I did of Robert De Niro, which is embarrassing, because it's one of the easiest impressions that a lot of people did back then, but it went well enough. Jim Jeffries is out touring new material. What can we expect? He told Inlander, look, with me, it's always going to be some social issues, some sex jokes, and then some stuff about my life. You're just following a soap opera of person, aren't you? When I was younger, you were watching a guy who was dealing with addiction and having problems there. Now you're dealing with a guy who's doing the same as everyone my age, struggling to be an adult while having to be a parent. You know what? So there's stuff about married life. There's no more stories of one-night stands or anything like that. It's tales of being an adult, I guess. But it's still just grubby jokes. I always write the show that I want to watch. Every comedian who's worth their salt should really think that they're the best comedian in the world because they're doing a show that's designed just for them. So I hope other people relate to it, and I hope other people can see themselves in me and they take something away from that. I think my stage persona can come across as a bit of an a-hole, but I think people can relate to that because aren't we all just a little bit of an a-hole? Bill Burr talked to Variety about his upcoming special in which he deals with depression. Variety said, I feel like you're knowingly playing with the audience's perception of you. Burr said, I didn't look at it that way. When I started doing the material, there was this really excited, happy feeling I had that I wasn't the only one who felt that way. Men were laughing. They related to this. I don't feel good right now. I feel sad. And I'm not allowed to say that as a guy because it's considered weak. I always felt like a freak. I grew up with orange hair. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. I didn't feel like I quite fit in until I was at my second open mic and I was hanging out with comedians who were the same kind of weird that I was. A lot of people died quickly in a short period of time. People I looked up to. People I became friends with. One of them was Bob Saget. To see that guy taken, it didn't make any sense. Spoilers! Burr dives into Israel and Palestine. Variety was curious, do you have to be more cautious while workshopping material that's political or tense in nature? Bill said, nah, you just go up and do it. And if you listen to that bit, it's apolitical. I'm just saying we need to come up with a way to solve our differences without dropping bombs on children. I don't think anybody have a problem with that. The great thing about travel, if you travel with your ears open, is you see way more similarities than differences. Everybody kind of wants the same thing, to chill out with people they love, to have enough money for food, clothing, shelter, and to be able to exhale and not worry about what's coming around the corner. One of my favorite gigs last year was in Abu Dhabi. Drugs are illegal there, and I was telling a story about taking mushrooms. The way they were laughing, I was like, these people definitely do drugs. They just don't do them here. They go abroad to do them. But then I was thinking later, well, wait a minute. I used to listen to Richard Pryor talking about cocaine and freebasing, and I've never done that. Are they laughing about me taking mushrooms like this is some kind of Cheech and Chong stuff? I still don't know. Interesting follow-up. Variety, when doing a corporate or international gig, have you ever been asked to avoid certain topics? Oh, yeah, definitely in Abu Dhabi. Now, how does that negotiation work? At first, they get real offensive and upset with my agent going, why the F would you book me here? I agreed to do Abu Dhabi because why wouldn't you want to go there to see what it was like? And then classic, 10 days before I go out there, they're like, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. Somebody had to write me a letter of apology. And I'm sitting there going, why the hell would they book me? So now I'm stressing before I go there going, I got to get 6 months in jail for doing a crap joke. I even go to this coffee shop next to synagogue. There's this rabbi. He comes down. I got to know the guy. I'm always busting his chops because he's always giving life advice. I'm like, dude, do you ever just say hello? I tease him. And that had been a relationship for half a year. And then he shut up one day and he goes, hey, how you doing? I go, you know what? I'm not doing good. So I told him, I got this gig coming up and I'm stressed. I don't want to get in trouble or get detained or any of that stuff. I can't talk about this. I can't talk about that, blah, blah, blah. He listened and shrugged his shoulders and goes, they're just not ready yet. He just gave me that perspective. And all of a sudden I understood what my job was. My job was to go over there and not be a jerk and try to advance the stand-up ball a couple yards for the next guy that comes over there. And I ended up having a great time. What kind of material did you have to avoid? This is fascinating. Burr said, our foreign policies upset a lot of people. I'll leave it at that. Listen, I got another gig over there, so I don't need, who gives a hoot? I wasn't allowed to make fun of the city or the Royals. It was pretty small, but a lot of it is what you do as a comedian, like at Seattle. I want to get a coffee, and I'm the only person not transitioning. Abu Dhabi didn't want you doing that, but I could make fun of myself, make fun of other places. I know this sounds ridiculous to us, but I get it. Abu Dhabi's where stand-up was in about 1968, which is kind of cool. Who would have thought some bald Irish-American ginger would vibe with people in Abu Dhabi? This is a fantastic article. I'll continue to pick away at it. Comedy Gives Back is doing a fundraiser for Los Angeles on January 31st. The benefit features Zach Galifianakis, Bob Odenkirk, David Cross, Patton Oswalt, Brian Posehn, John Ennis, Tom Kenny, Jill Talley, and more. That is a great lineup, those first five. Zach, Odenkirk, Cross, Patton, and Posehn. Yes. Dulce Sloan has left The Daily Show. Everyone is saying the parting was amicable. In a statement, Sloan said, there's work that I've done over the past 7 years with The Daily Show that I couldn't be prouder of. I collaborated with some incredibly talented people who I look forward to continuing to work with. I know our paths will continue to cross. I'm now free to pursue my dream job of being a live-action Klingon on Star Trek. Daily Show spokesperson said, Dulce Sloan is an exceptional comedic force, and we're thankful for her hilarious 7-year run on The Daily Show. We wish her the best. Look forward to watching her next chapter. Sloan had not been part of the rotation of correspondents/hosts. Last spring, Late Nighter asked her if she would accept a role as the show's permanent host if offered to her, and she said, I'm just telling you the reality of the situation. That's not going to happen. I'm paying attention and I work there. It's not about whether they asked me, it's why they didn't ask Roy Wood Jr. Because if they didn't ask Roy, they sure as hell ain't going to ask me. If they're getting rid of all the diversity in late night, why would they turn around and ask me? This is random. I discovered that there's a comedy room at a restaurant near my house. Now, they've been doing comedy shows there for like a couple years, and I haven't really given it much thought. I actually ate at this restaurant 10 days ago with my daughter, and, they don't really promote the room. I was just curious what was going on there. It's called the Comedy Dojo, and I went on the website, and I see this Saturday, Louis C.K. is playing that room and working out some material. It's already sold out, or I would go, but I might have to pay attention to this room and start going. They've got some people you've heard of. Anyway, I'm obsessively hitting refresh because, if I can, this place is, 6 minutes from where I live, so I could be there and home super quickly. So I'll have to keep an eye on that one. A cool account on Threads is the SNL Network. They broke down the Chappelle episode. I saw some fun facts there. They said the Chappelle episode had the fewest segments for an episode in SNL history, only 10 segments. The monologue, Immigrant Dad Talk Show, Fire Evacuation, the great sketch. The music segment, Weekend Update, Police Station, music segment 2, Pop the Balloon or Find Love, and then the Goodnight segment. Chappelle's the first SNL host since Flip Wilson in 1983 to not appear in any live sketch after Weekend Update, although that does not include the at-home episodes in season 45, remember COVID, and does not include the Hulk Hogan Mr. T episode in season 10 when there was no traditional news segment. I gotta find out more about that. I wonder why there was no news that week. In case you were wondering about Chappelle and Bowen Yang in the past, people have been like, hey, how come Bowen Yang's not standing near Dave Chappelle? During the goodbyes this week, Chappelle and Bowen Yang briefly hugged. All right. That was their first interaction on screen of the night. Yang did not appear in any sketches with Chappelle. Last time Chappelle hosted, people were like, hey, what's up with Bo and Yang? Yang told Variety, I stand where I always stand on good nights. It wasn't a physical distance that anybody was creating. It had to do with so many things that were completely internal. Vanity Fair has published a big article that we're talking about on the Palace Intrigue podcast. That's the podcast where we talk about the royal family, Palace Intrigue, wherever you get your shows. They wrote a lot about Meghan and Harry. And I'm bringing it up here because of a weird shot at Eliza Schlesinger quoting the Vanity Fair article. They're discussing the guest Meghan had on her podcast, and they write, these archetypes, actually stereotypes, included diva, parentheses Mariah Carey, and bimbo, parentheses Paris Hilton, and Eliza Schlesinger. Does Eliza Schlesinger have a bimbo persona that I just missed? Just seemed kind of weird. Rapper turned comedian T.I. was on Young Jock's Streets Morning Takeover. T.I. told Young Jock why he prefers comedy to rap and said, ain't no paper. He points out the path to success in comedy is a different journey, one that doesn't always guarantee the same rewards. It ain't a slope, it's a dip. I ain't even tripping because it's so much fun, I enjoy myself. That's the thing. When we had all the money in the world and the energy just wasn't right, you know what I'm saying? So now I just value my peace of mind. The NL Times is a website that covers news from the Netherlands in English. They write Comedy Club Boom Chicago. That's an Amsterdam club, I believe, not one in Chicago. Boom Chicago has canceled 2 performances by Israeli-Jewish comedian Yohai Sponder, citing safety concerns following online backlash and threats. Boom Chicago director Andrew Moskos wrote an email to Sponder's manager. Due to the climate in Amsterdam, reactions and concerns reportedly expressed by police, we can no longer allow Yohai Sponder's performances on January 25th. This really caught my attention. Per NL Times, I'll read the sentence verbatim from NL Times. Moscow added that the club would assist in finding an alternative venue, potentially a, quote, Jewish location, unquote, or another club. I am not hip to the Amsterdam comedy scene. I'm not sure what a Jewish location would mean. Some folks on social media had labeled Sponder as an ultra-Zionist and criticized his show The Self-Loving Jew, alleging it promotes Israeli propaganda. Moskos described the situation as complex and said the decision was made reluctantly. We prefer not to cancel shows, but given the reaction and threats, we had no other choice. Boom Chicago stands for freedom of expression, but in the current situation, we cannot facilitate it. Ticket holders will receive refunds. This Noel Fielding thing continues to be interesting. I told you yesterday that Apple had shut down production of the completely made-up adventures of Dick Turpin. Noel has said reports that his future on the Great British Bake Off being in doubt are untrue. Fielding's spokesperson told The Standard, there's been absolutely no discussion about Noel stepping down from Bake Off. We've been in contact with Channel 4 and Love Productions throughout all the speculations, and his stepping down has never been part of that dialogue. We can confirm he'll be returning to co-host the next series of Bake Off. And Ted Lasso fans, Nick Mohammed is giving us some hope here. In a post on Twitter, Mohammed framed his face with a ring light and announced that some dates from his upcoming tour would be rescheduled. His explanation, I know there'd be a lot of speculation as to why I moved these dates. What's it for? I'll be honest. It's for some filming that I haven't been able to shift for the love of money. I can't say what the filming is, but it will be announced shortly. He asked fans not to speculate as to what they think it might be, but he held up a hand-painted Believe sign, which suggests that it's Ted Lasso, but he added, the last thing I want is for people to go mad. And that is your comedy news for today. Join us on the Facebook group. We had a great discussion over the weekend about the top comedians of all time. We kicked the ball around. I don't think we decided anything, but it was just a fun discussion of how do you even rank anybody in the first place. The genesis of that conversation was, is John Mulaney in the top 10? I both hold the position of I don't think so, and also I can't name 10 better yet. So feel encouraged to join the group and weigh in. Daily Comedy News Podcast group. I'll see you tomorrow.